Welcome to the RPG Podcast.
And we are live.
Oh, God, Patton!
Presented by SHEATH. A Time Wheel production.
Welcome, everyone, to the Robert Patton Global Podcast. I'm here with the one and only Mike Brancatelli. He has a wonderful podcast that SHEATH sponsors called Micadelic. He gets into all of the good conversations about things that matter. So I highly recommend you checking that out. I just wanted to say that this episode is not sponsored by Onnit Alpha Brain, but I'm going to take a couple.
Oh.
Because I like to have an alpha brain. And today I'm having a relatively good day. Last time you were here, we just hung out. We went for a little walk in the wilderness. We hung out with my brother. You hung out with him a lot more. You guys were talking about probably more psychedelic things. I was on Sober October
Right.
at the time.
Yeah.
And so I let you guys kind of have a little session. But I'm off Sober October, and I actually broke it a little early, probably like October 23rd, I think. And about 2 or 3 days later, I took these mushrooms, supposed to be like a microdose to my recollection, but pretty quickly into it, I realized it was not a microdose. And,
Yeah.
So I kind of braced myself for a trip, which it's been a while since I like tripped on a full-blown trip. Like I like microdosing. I can hang out, I can work, and it kind of gives you a little bit of like feel good. But so this was like it was like a pleasant surprise though, because I was like, I don't want to trip. But then mostly afterwards, or maybe halfway through it or something, I was like, okay, I'm glad I did this because maybe I needed this. I felt strong the next day. I felt powerful. I felt like He-Man. It was
Nice.
weird how the after effect lasts. And I felt like I love my wife more, and any little idiosyncrasies she might have that I don't jive with, like kind of melted away. And I saw her, it was like maybe not a little girl because that sounds bad, but just, like a innocent being.
Right.
And we're all doing the best we can,
Yeah.
And
Yeah. There's a common misconception with I sometimes forget being sort of more in the psychedelic bubble that I'm in, but I suppose that most people just hear microdose and they just think that it's just a smaller dose, but like the official definition is a sub-perceptual dose. So this guy, Dr. James Fadiman, wrote a book called The Psychedelic Explorer's Guide, and so a microdose would be like a tenth of a normal dose, and then like a gram or two, that would be like a moderate dose or something. Some people even call it like a hike-row dose. You take a little bit more and go for a hike. A museum dose, I've heard that before. Like,
nice.
All these things. And then there's a therapeutic dose, which is usually like somewhere over 2, like in between 2 to like 3.5 grams or something like that.
What would you typically take, or on your most recent journey?
Well, yeah. So I typically, the way that I like to use mushrooms is more of like a ceremonial kind of way, and more of like a intentional way. I'll sometimes do them recreationally, but really I like LSD more recreationally.
Okay.
So I do pretty big doses when I go in, like once every 3 months or 6 months, something like that. So for whatever reason, I wasn't planning on this, but on 11/11, I took 11
Oh my
grams.
God.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
scary.
Yeah.
Because we're both going through learning growth stages in our lives, and I guess we all are. So I'm curious to hear what kind of realizations you came up with. I could tell you some of mine. And
I know you were talking about some of them before, and having more love for your wife and seeing the kind of innocence there, and just a better appreciation, feeling more energy and stuff, and that afterglow effect. It's one of my favorite things about the psychedelic experience, is that it like acts as this sort of computer defrag, reset, and oil change for the car. All these analogies that work for it, and so I've been doing it for a long time, and like I said, I guess it was influenced maybe by my experience living in the jungle and working with ayahuasca, and just really appreciating the sort of intentionality and the ceremony and the ritual and the kind of little bit of like theatrical play of the whole experience, to give it this kind of container, so that when I'm going in, like I'm going to be using these amazing fungi substances, these mushrooms that are just, they're magical, right? Magic mushrooms. And I'm going to be using them. What am I using them for? Why am I doing this? What's the purpose? What's the point here?
To get high, man.
Sure. I mean, that can be.
But that was like the old reason. And
yeah. It still is, though, to some extent.
Some people. Yeah,
like,
to some extent.
Yeah, I mean, like, even for me, though. Like,
me too.
I just said to my friend the other day, we were watching a Fish concert, like a live stream, or not live, like an old one. He's a big Fish fan. I don't really care for him too much. But it was still just cool to be like, wow, man, like, I really miss just being like rocked off my gourd on like copious amounts of psychedelics, at like in a sea of people, everybody just euphoric and like loving. And so I still do it in that sense, but I also have that sort of ritual as well. And I look at it as like, I'm going somewhere for something. I'm taking a trip.
Yeah.
I'm traveling to a particular place, and I've been to this place many times before. And every time I go, they're always showing me something new, or they're asking me if did I do the thing that I learned here before, or so I've been doing this for years and years, and I've been always experimenting with larger doses. And there's a well, he's passed now, but is a black martial arts instructor and high dose psilocybin journeyer named Kalindi Lee, and I believe he passed this year. I think it was COVID, but he was talking about these deep dive journeys, eating like 40 grams of mushrooms.
My God.
And at first I just didn't really understand it, because I was always like listening to Terrence McKenna, who would just say, all you need is 5 dried grams in silent darkness. That'll rock your wig back to the next century. And I'm like, okay, well, I was doing that for a while. Then I started doing 6, and then it was 8, and then 9, and then for whatever reason, just I was like, let me play with a little, like, I don't know, magic here. It's 11/11/2020. When, like, all right, like on the day, I was like, all right, I'll eat 11. I tried to weigh it out to be 11/11 on the scale just for fun, but I couldn't get it there, so I got to 11/22, and yeah, just completely blew me away. And the difference between this experience and other ones is that I've come out of it with a lot of like insight and a lot of excitement. And I think in the past I would sort of, all these things would just kind of appear within the next couple of days, and I'd be like, okay, I have to like work on like implementing these kinds of things into my life, in the integration process. And this time it's been this like slow drip of synchronicities that have kind of triggered something in me and reminded me of something, or someone approached me with something and I was like, oh my God, that's exactly what I was just thinking. So there's been a lot of like divine timing with a lot of stuff that's been happening. And I'll say that I came out of this experience, I went into the experience trying to inspect my own cleverness. You said that I was intelligent, right? Like maybe sometimes too much for my own good, where I can rationalize things, right? So one of the things is taking action, actually taking action. And I have a tendency to sort of understand something, in my mind, and then kind of like be able to talk about it, but not actually fully do it. And I can convince myself that I don't really need to fully do it, that I'm like somehow above that I'm better, right? So it ties into massive ego checking, massive like, you know, stop trying to like prove that you're right. Stop trying to prove that you're good or that you're worthy or better or having judgment, you know? And I got this image of like, you know, I'm this like big like baby god sitting at the edge of the multiverse, just like smoking a pipe and just being like, oh yeah, I could do that, but I don't want to, like, you know. And it's like so I really inspected that, and then I came out and I wrote down, get out of my own way, facilitate flow, be aware of my own cleverness, and allow magic to happen. And I've been inspecting all the elements that, you know, like in sales, they say like, where are the pain points? Like what's been preventing me from like really doing that? And so there's a lot of like inner trickery. Like the archetype of the trickster is very present for me. Like this chaotic, crazy, sort of enlightened type being that just like, you know, farts in people's faces, but then like drops like profound wisdom as well, or, you know, like steals somebody's car, but like enlightens them somehow or something. And you know, but there's also this like malevolent kind of like devilish aspect to it too, where I can like turn that inside on myself and trick my own self to think that I'm actually doing something and it's coming from a place of authenticity when it isn't really, though, you know. And I really want to work on this because I feel like if I could clear that junk out of the way, then I just flow in doing my purpose.
Have you read Think and Grow Rich?
You know what? Last time I was here, you guys were recommending that, and I listened to the audiobook on the way home.
Okay.
Yeah. Positive mental attitude.
PMA, yes. And there's a lot of principles, because one of the things he says is like, you don't have to be a genius to be rich. And that makes me feel good because I'm just not, you know, I'm not an idiot. And maybe I'm even relatively intelligent, but as far as articulating what I'm thinking the way you probably can. But like you said, sometimes it can get in your way. You're so smart that you maybe think you're above it and you don't need to take this action. Whereas a dummy might be like, well, I'm just going to get to work. You know, I'm just going to work. And I'm creative, I guess, and imaginative. I do feel like I draw from the infinite when I have inspirations, like for Sheath, and I've had other ones, billion-dollar ideas, but somebody else already had. I never got around to doing it. This was this key idea I had back in 2000. But anyways, I didn't get around to doing it, and so somebody else did it, and it's like in every Home Depot and Walmart, and it's just keys with designs on them. I back in 2000, I was like, keys are so boring.
Right.
What if they were like jewelry? You carry them around everywhere you go. What if it was like cool instead of just like this bland metal? And then somebody else not took it, but you know.
Yeah, they acted on it.
Yeah, they probably had a similar inspiration, and then they actually acted on it and had the resources and whatever. But
to me, you're smart. Like you know, and I think that there's this like very limiting definition of like smart, right? Because I think it can mean like all kinds of different things. So maybe I'm like particularly like smart in like one particular way,
like books or something, or
whatever,
remembering
stuff, or or just speaking or whatever.
Yeah.
And then for me, I look at someone like you and I'm like, built a company, like amazing house, like great like business acumen, you know, like just the cool design, the creativity, the ideas. I mean, you know, like that's amazing.
It's a level of intelligence.
Yeah.
I know I'm not an idiot, but when I look at other people and comedians in particular, which you're a comedian still, whether or not you're practicing or not. You know?
I'm on sabbatical.
Yeah, but like the way you like will twist and turn a conversation with words, I'm like, man, why can't I do that? I would love.
The grass is always greener thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because like I'm thinking like, man, why can't I be a little bit like more financially responsible, or why can't I like put like more business ideas out there or something like that, you know? So we're always beating ourselves up,
Yeah.
right? We're always beating ourselves up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm healthy. I have all my faculties, limbs and digits, and you know, I used to always want to be taller because I wanted to be in the NBA. You know, so you get the cards you're dealt and you play them, and I feel like I'm playing them okay. One of the things is, you know, relationships and building relationships with my team primarily, but it extends out, like you're a part of that, and just keeping that running smooth and getting a benefit out of a relationship instead of, I don't know, just like taking it for granted, I guess, and that they're always going to be there. I want to be mutually beneficial, and that's part of the book Think and Grow Rich is like a mastermind group, and we're always kind of like building each other up and just really practicing the principles. I know you noticed my vision board.
Yeah.
Do you have a vision board?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, my girlfriend and I are going to work on one. She hosted like a vision board creating party last year, and yeah, I've been interested in that. I was interested in that, and then I sort of lost interest in it, and now I'm sort of regaining interest in it because I think my perspective is shifting on it a little bit.
It's magic.
Yeah, it is
really
magic.
is. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, the intention, like you're talking about with mushrooms or, you know, just you don't have to have the magic mushrooms. You can do it without it. But it does seem to be an enhancement of that space of your mind where you can open up possibilities. I feel like maybe, but you don't, you know, like you could just do it with meditation and visualization, you know.
Yeah.
But I feel like doing that with mushrooms maybe is even more powerful.
Yes, it is 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like for me, psychedelics, like I really just connect with them because I suppose that I just have the need to get cracked wide open.
Yeah.
And just like devoured by the experience because I'm stubborn.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard for me to listen to myself when it's myself.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm like ingesting something that's like forcing me into the void, into the all, then I'm like, oh yeah, okay, thanks for the reminder.
It helps to have a second opinion to kind of enforce your original idea. Be like, okay, you're confirming that I was right. Now I'm going to maybe take action. Action, like you said, you kind of said, it sounded like you were saying you kind of talk yourself out of doing things.
Yeah.
So sometimes, I mean, whereas to me, like there's nothing really going on in my mind. It's just like cricket.
I would love that. I would love that. See, it's all the perspective that we have, you know, and learning how to balance, like you said, the cards you're dealt, right? I mean, that's like, we've heard that so many times, but it's so true. It's like, I used to play poker a lot, so I love that analogy. Yeah.
I love poker. The not seven, but the main one, Texas Hold'em.
Oh, Texas Hold'em. Yeah, I used to play Texas Hold'em all the time. Loved it a lot. I would love to play again. You know, I just thought of something. You were talking about the team, having the team around you. And that was another thing that came into my mind recently as well from this, you know, as I'm integrating this experience, the sort of insights and clarity that came with it. I'm not so good at asking for help and asking for support. And recently I've gotten myself in some groups, and it's been helpful. And I was like reluctant to at first. I don't know. I suppose I chalk it up to maybe my like cynical kind of East Coast New York, you know, attitude about things, and you know, but like it's a tough.
Like the people are all only in it for themselves, and then if you ask them for help, maybe they're going to want something back, or what do you mean?
Just having this idea in my mind that I can do it all. I can do everything. I can do it all. I don't need to ask other people, hey, I'm going through a tough time right now. Like I need to talk about some stuff. And, you know, even though I have been to like therapy and like integration stuff and things like that, what, you know, this like trickster of my mind like will convince me you're good now, you're flowing, you're good, you don't need anything, you got the world by the balls, just ride this fucking wave, man, you're killing it. And then I'll wind up in a ditch like 3 months later and be like, fuck, I should have gotten a little bit more support along the way. I should have met with people and just been like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing, and I need help.
Yeah,
you know,
that's where I'm at. Like I never know what I'm doing really. It's all just winging it and doing the best I can, and it typically works out. It seems to have been working out. But like, I'm doing this podcast and you're doing a podcast and you've been doing them, and that's kind of like your jam. That's what you're about, you know. So how did this trip give you any insights to how you're going to try to, you know, expand your audience? I think that's kind of like your main goal, is to build your audience.
Yeah. I guess when I started it out, I wasn't thinking that way. I just wanted people to like it.
Yeah. And that's where I'm at. Like,
yeah.
Nobody, like, not to diminish our conversation, but I'm going to say, like, nobody's going to listen to this. I guess like 30 or 50 people. I don't know. It's like some small number, but it is not nothing. We do get like 30 or 100 downloads, and people apparently are listening to it within the week of the release, and so that's more than I thought.
Well, it's great to keep in mind that, you know, in this world of like millions of clicks and millions of views and millions of hits and millions of likes and millions of posts and, you know, all this stuff, you know, but what does that really, you know, I think it's more important to have quality and substance, and people that really care, that really like you, that really listen. And, you know, Seth Godin is someone that I like, who talks about, like, you know, 1,000 true fans.
Yep.
And I love that principle because it makes it so much easier. Like, you know, I mean, 30 to 100 people listening. Imagine if we were just in a room right now and there were 30 to 100 people sitting in the audience.
Yeah.
That's a good turnout.
Yeah, that'd be intimidating. I'd be like, they're all looking at me.
Yeah.
Don't fuck it up.
Yeah. So I think it's just about, you know, for me, yeah, this trip was, it was really magical. It was really beautiful. And, you know, I was in this, like, it was very DMT.
Yeah. I'm kind of curious, like, tell me, because that's more than anyone I know has ever taken. And so, when I was on, I think like 1.5 grams or 2 or 3 grams the other week, like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I was tripping pretty hard.
Yeah.
But 11, it seems like it would almost not be painful, but like super intense.
Yeah. Well, I only did it so I could brag about it and prove that I'm better than everyone else.
Yeah, well, you win. You won.
No.
You got my respect.
No, I mean, it is intense. And, you know, this is not to be taken lightly. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to just say, like, you know, this is a very intense thing, but I have been working in this space for a very long time. Mm-hmm. And so I'm looking at it as like this expedition, you know, like an astronaut goes to outer space. Like, I am preparing for this journey to go in. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, it was cool as fuck. Like, I was in this massive, like, mirror fractaled, colorful, geometric, like, computer grid of like biological tubes and wires and switches and fluorescent lights and everything, like, folding in and transforming. Like, Terrence McKenna always talks about the self-transforming machine elves, but it was very, like, there's a lot of cool, like, DMT art, and this was a very DMT because they're cousins, you know. Mm-hmm. They're both tryptamines. The chemical compounds are very similar. And at very high doses, especially with the certain strains, they act very. So it was the strain is called a penis envy strain. And
yeah, I hate the name.
Yeah, I think Terrence McKenna might have came up with it. I'm not quite sure about that, but well, the mushrooms, when they grow, they look like these giant dongs.
Yeah,
you know,
like the phallus.
Yeah, they're very phallic. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever seen this in the wild. But like, we'll go hiking sometimes and we'll be by a stream, and these weird phallus-looking phalluses like grow up in ice sculpture. It looks like a dick. It's like it's just like a natural shape, this phallus shape. And anyways, people out there listening, you may have seen, I know my brother was with me when we saw it, and I was just like, why is this, it's growing out of, the stream, and it looks like a dick. And I'm like, I don't like that.
It's part of the infinite fractal. Everything's dicks and pussies.
There you go.
And asses.
Yes.
I mean, it's all, at the end of the day, it all comes down to that. And,
Sucks.
yeah, it's just like anything, like anything to do with the sort of, like the taboo, like organs or whatever we want to refer to them as, but like farting, like fart noises, even if it's not a fart, someone slides on a chair, you're like, oh, was that fart? I'm ready to laugh. Yeah, it's
well, I don't know. I kind of went off on sideways,
right,
with the phalluses, but I guess it's just like a natural kind of shape, and these mushrooms resemble a penis.
Yes.
Also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a great experience, and I think it really got to the core of a lot of things that that have been like blocking me. So I look at it. I sort of explained it like this. I did a recent podcast about it, and I was talking about how I have a tendency to like dive like an ocean diver, and you dive down to the bottom of the ocean, and you're like you're doing it all the time. You know the landscape, you see the octopus, you've gone to the far reaches, you see the bioluminescence, you come back, you tell everybody about it, that's your thing. And then one day you discover this cave that goes even deeper, and you're like, holy shit, like I didn't even know, didn't even know this was possible to go this deep. So all this time for myself, what I'm trying to like connect here is that I've been doing a lot of psychedelic work, and with ayahuasca, with mushrooms, with ketamine, with MDMA, with all kinds of things, and going to depths and bringing it back and integrating and feeling like I've got a good sense of like what needs to be done to manifest my vision and to live my life with as the least amount of suffering that I could possibly live, and also to communicate from a really centered, grounded, and balanced, authentic place, and it was like I was doing that, but I didn't go into that cave, and I was going to the bottom of the ocean. I was bringing back all this stuff, and so this time I really went deep into that cave, and really was like, what is this thing about me? Why am I so judgmental? Why am I so cynical? Why am I so ego-centered and selfish at times? And it comes from a lot of the ways that I grew up and like what I went through and how I acted and the things that I did, and then how I used coping mechanisms to deal with it, like to handle it. And a lot of it stems from the fact that I was like a real big bully when I was a teenager, and I treated my younger brothers really poorly, and I was really mean, and I would say really mean, like it was just bad. I was bad, and everybody told me you're bad, and I kind of played into that too. Like, yeah, I'm fucking bad. I'm badass. I'm a rebel. If I get into a fight with someone, I'm gonna kick their ass, and people are gonna know. And did a lot of drugs. Abused a lot of drugs.
Like powders.
Yeah.
Cocaine.
Yeah, I mean, I started doing ecstasy when it was ecstasy, not MDMA.
Right.
So when it was like Mitsubishi stack pills when I was like 15, doing cocaine at like 17, drinking excessively. My home life sucked. My parents I love them to death. Like they're the best people in the world, but they didn't know what the hell they had gotten themselves into with having 3 boys and, both
no internet
teachers and internet came on in 96.
Well, they were like,
oh yeah,
they were so
ignorant.
ignorant. I mean, my parents were also like, they didn't teach me any of the things like coping skills about stress, what happens when you're like overwhelmed or whatever, like anything about meditation or breathing or exercise and the importance of these types of things to deal with life, because they didn't know. They did the best they could.
Yep. Like you said, I do think everybody is doing the best that they can, and that's where I'm like, oh, I thought I was doing the best I can, and this is the limit. And then it's like, oh, okay, but I can more. You know, like when you're working out and you're trying to get that like last rep in, it's like I can't do it anymore. But you know that you fucking can.
Yeah.
And when you do, it's like, oh, I fucking knew I could.
Yeah.
And so that same thing happens with like healing work, you know, and it's like working those muscles and stuff. And so, yeah, I mean, and it's not to like place this like victim mentality on myself, this blame of like, oh, like poor little old me and like my growing, because like, come on, like that's, you know, but it's just to have a recognition of that so I can go, oh, okay, now I can actually do something about this because I see where the leak in the pipe is. Now I could actually fucking fix it.
Yeah. But are you going to fix it? And is it going to last? And, you know, because
that's a good question.
Yeah. Because like you think you take these mushrooms and you have all these realizations and I'm going to put it into practice and I'm going to live a perfect life. But then it seems like a few weeks later, you're kind of back to where you were. I mean, in my experience, and I had a couple of thoughts. So like when I did the mushrooms last time, I thought it was a microdose, turned out not to be, but I knew what to expect. I was like, okay, it's coming. I was like, oh fuck. I was kind of like getting myself ready. I was like, okay, here we go.
You're like going on the roller coaster, like click, click,
Yes,
click, click,
yeah.
click, 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 click. Whew. Yeah.
But like, so if I were to take 11 grams, I feel like
Please don't.
I'm not.
Yeah.
But
I'm not advocating that for anybody.
yeah, but I feel like in your case, you at least knew you were on the track, if you will, you know, and like, you're like, okay, you probably knew what to expect, kind of. So it wasn't like this total shock, like what the fuck is happening? You've done it before. The wheels have been greased a little bit. So you at least did what, you know, you kind of were probably able to navigate a little bit easier having done these things in the past. I guess that was kind of my point. Like taking 11 grams seems like it would be super scary for someone that doesn't know what they're getting into.
100%.
But
Yeah.
you've done it enough to where you're like a pro, a psychonaut.
I would say so. Yeah. And it's like, I always feel weird about talking about things like that because like, oh, look at me. I do, you know, because that's that part of me, you know, and like you asked, like, how am I going to heal that or take care of that? And I think it's just about really stepping out of my own way and just letting what this energy that's moving through me, through this like, you know, meat suit that's Mike Brancatelli, and whatever this energy is that's coming through, and just being with that and being like, yeah, I am, you know, I am a psychonaut. I do this stuff, and you know, and all the other things that I want to take care of and stuff. And it's like really approaching it with this attitude of like, I'm just kind of like facilitating this energy that's moving through me. And that's that stepping out of my way and allowing magic to happen. And I've had that happen in my life many, many times.
Yeah.
You know, when when synchronicity is just like ramping up and things are happening and opportunities are coming and people are saying the perfect things to you and you're saying the perfect things to them. And it's again, like with these journeys, like they're not medication, they're medicine. And I think there's a difference because with medication, it sort of covers up a lot of the
Symptoms.
Yeah, exactly. And this sort of gets to the root. You know, I always give this like analogy of like, you know, doing these big journeys is like you have a room in your house that just has a bunch of shit in it, you know, just stuff. It's like, you know, people have a junk drawer or whatever. You have like junk closet, just throw things in there. And then one day you decide to like open it up and go through it, you know? So the mushrooms provide the opening up, and they provide the spreading out, and you see all the things that have been stuffed in this closet, and you're like, oh wow, like okay, you know. And Rick Doblin of MAPS famously talked about coming out of the psychedelic closet, like talking about these psychedelic experiences, because, and that is exactly what they in themselves do, is they reveal to you these things that have been buried, and now it's up to me to do the work of like putting them in their proper places. So they're not magic pills. They're not going to just like give you instant enlightenment, whatever that means, wake you up. They're going to do that for a couple days, maybe a month or so, give you this nice afterglow. But it's really about this responsibility that comes in place of it, because people like to talk about them as like hallucinogens, like, oh man, I'm seeing stuff and I'm in like, you know, whatever. But I think of them as like being hyper real. It brings you completely into the truth that you're avoiding.
Yeah.
The things that you're just not looking at, or that you don't want to admit, or that you're not seeing, or the possibilities that are there that were clouded, the great things that are there that you haven't given yourself enough credit to acknowledge. And it's you know, it really is just a wonderful thing, and I love exploring, and I feel like it's such a great tool, and I feel that my relationship to it now has even stepped up a notch, because meditation, breath work, journaling, exercise, like all of these things combined with a powerful psychedelic experience. I mean, you are like Batman going after the Joker with all your, you know, you got your belt and your gear and everything. You got everything. You got all the tools that you need when you put it all together like that.
Yeah. I think that putting them all together makes it one complete whole, as opposed to trying to just do the mushrooms and go to a party. Like, that's not going to fix you.
Yeah, you can't rely on the mushrooms to do the work for you.
Yeah.
They'll get mad at you.
Yeah.
You know, they did. They turned on me one time. They were like, I remember I had this mushroom. I don't know if I told you this story or not, but I had a mushroom trip where, so this was in 2014 when I was just starting to get into doing heroic doses, which that's what McKenna
Terrence
calls them.
McKenna.
Yeah. And so I was listening to him and his way, and just like, man, this is like, because it was so new, you know, whenever I have a tendency to get into something that's new, I'm always like, man, I'm gonna like do it. You know, I'm podcasting, I'm gonna get all the pro stuff. Like, I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna dive in. And so the same thing with mushrooms, and I was doing 5 grams like every other week for like 6 weeks, and I had this one experience where I was trying to, McKenna was saying, ask the mushrooms for something. So he's like, go in there with an intention, you know, say, show me, you know? So I'm like in my room, and I got like incense and sage and Palo Santo and candles and like light music, some good, you know, good little background beats, and I ate them. Now I make a tea, but I used to eat them dried and crunch them up. And I had a couple joints like rolled waiting for me. And I was laying down in my bed in the dark, and I'm like, show me, show me. And then it starts to do that twisty turny. It's coming on, going up the roller coaster thing. And then boom, I am in an Alex Gray painting with all the eyes and the cavernous like swirling. And there's all these little like leprechauns sitting down, like infinite numbers of leprechauns, like sitting on the edges of these, you know, structures of that, like the Alex Gray painting structures. Yeah, like the ledges and stuff.
Yeah.
And they're like cheersing. They each have like 2 beers in their hands, and they're like cheersing beers. And they're like, ha, 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 show me, ha, ha, ha. And they were like totally mocking me.
Wow.
You know, and like the message that I got from that was that it was like, dude, you're taking this shit too seriously. You're not doing the work. You're not, you're coming in just for like the fireworks show to see all the cool colors and the fractals and the sounds. And that's something that like that these things can do too. They'll show you something in a way that you weren't expecting. And that was like a powerful like learning lesson as well for me. And,
yeah, that's probably a little bit too frequent to be doing 5 gram doses. Like, I feel like the most once a month, probably closer to once every 3 to 6 months. And ideally, you know, you do it one time and you have all the answers, and your life is balanced, and you know, your mental.
What fun would that be, though?
Yeah, you miss out on some of the trips.
There's a joy in not knowing sometimes.
Yeah. One thing you said that stood out just a second ago is, and I have a question, because I've tripped, let's say 2 dozen times, probably more, who knows. I'm sure you've done it like way more than that, but One frequent theme is that the transition state, like going from here we're sober and not tripping to tripping, but the in between, yeah, as you're shifting from not tripping to tripping, I experience these weird, it's like the weirdest visuals of like noodles and intestines and farts maybe, and like
Yeah.
like peeing and toilets and snakes, and it's all these like tubes, and
Yeah.
I'm even, my body is like, I'm remembering right now, I'm feeling something in my face, but it's almost every time I trip, like to get from this side to that side, it's going through this process, and I visually see these noodles and intestines, and it's gross, and I don't like it. But once you get through to the other side, then it is, now you're there. But I always, and I don't know if it's always, but I go through that transition many times, and you kind of nodded and confirmed something.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, it's a very familiar experience. It's, especially in this latest one too. It came up again. I've been in the tubular realm like many times, and with ayahuasca as well. And yeah, it's like we're like, what are we? This is gross. Well, like it's disgusting. We're like, if you poke my skin, like some liquid's gonna come out, like red liquid. If you poke it like really hard, like I'm gonna just like disappear from like losing too much red liquid. There's all these like tubes in our body, and like sweating and farting and pee and poop and like saliva and excretions and jizz and
It's
fucking,
like I remember like toilets flushing was one of the things.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what is happening? Is this
Yeah.
going on in my body? It's a constant exchanging of fluids and pumping, and I guess this is one of the things that we're not aware of, which, because that would be too much information to process at one time, to be constantly aware of all the digestion happening. But I feel like that there is a moment during the trip stage, one of them, where it's like you see all that, and then you're just like, I don't know what it is, what kind of message it's sending, but it's just a common theme I've experienced, and I've never talked to anyone about that.
Yeah.
And to see like if they've had a similar kind of thing.
Yeah. I've so many times, and I've had the visions of the nature and the soil and the earth and the trees and water and animals and death and decay and like fungus, and everything eats each other and like decomposes and grows anew, and like myself included, and I'm like turning into a soup and like melting into a frog, and the frog is melting into the land, and then it's like the earth is melting into the cosmos, and it's like all this just messy, chaotic kind of soup of of creation that like takes form and then transmutes and like goes through these transitionary processes.
Life and death and decay. I know a couple years ago I had this spot on the top of my mouth. It was from smoking too much weed, and I would smoke it down to the roach where it's like the smoke is really hot, and it burned the top of my mouth ultimately. And because I remember feeling it, I was like, that didn't feel good. But then there was this spot on the roof of my mouth that wouldn't go away for weeks. And I went to the dentist and then went back, and it was still there. And they were like concerned, because if you have a spot in your mouth that won't go away, it could be cancerous, FYI. So they did a biopsy. So they cut that piece out of my mouth. So for 2 weeks, I had to wait to know whether or not I had cancer. And during that 2 weeks, I decided to take some mushrooms to like process whatever, the fact that I might die. And I remember I had another massage chair similar to this one, but not as good. But I was in it, took the mushrooms, I'm there. And I just remember like seeing myself withering away, like getting old and frail and skinny and bony, and just like purple. My skin was like turning purple, and I was dying. And I think I cried for myself, like, you lived a good life, whether I did or didn't is irrelevant, I guess. But I kind of, at the time, I rationalized it, and you know, like you just mentioned, like the whole, like that's part of life, and I guess I accepted it, but ultimately I didn't have cancer, so that was a nice relief.
Yeah.
But you know, like that's maybe not something anyone would do. You know, you have cancer, that's kind of scary. You probably don't want to take mushrooms in the midst of some kind of scary life or death situation. But I've also heard that people on their like deathbeds or, you know, on their way out, they take mushrooms and they accept their mortality. And
Yeah.
So
Johns Hopkins did a breakthrough study on that. People with terminal illnesses,
Yeah.
saying that it totally, like, it was the most profound experience that they had. I mean, it really is. I think that if you can die before you die, that's like a really valuable thing, is to, you know, see yourself decaying and like losing your hair and your vision and your sight and like your teeth, and just, you know, melting into to goo and dust. And it's like, okay, well fuck, like this whole reality is just like one pile of like Play-Doh. And
Yeah.
like we need to, like, while we're here, like, let's make something cool.
thinking
make
of
something
a
fun.
compost heap.
Yeah.
Just whatever we are, decaying back into the earth to be consumed by other like animals or just the earth itself. I want to segue the articulation to the podcasting and your podcast.
But yeah, I guess I was doing comedy and I was listening to podcasts, and I was walking dogs during the day for a day job. So I had a lot of time to listen to podcasts. So I
Yeah.
really, and this was 2013. Yeah, 2013. And podcast, like, I was just like, this is super cool. Like, I get to hear people that I don't hear anywhere else and that are awesome. And then, yeah, and it just kind of naturally evolved. I started doing Part of the Problem with Dave. And then I started Micadelic in 2016, and still doing it. And now I'm thinking of like, okay, maybe it's time to like do some cooler, some new things, some different things, some things that are going to evolve the show and take it in the direction that I want it to go in.
Like what?
So probably putting out some more content, but a variety of different kinds of content. So right now I'm testing a show with like a co-host guy.
Okay.
And doing like a video. We're looking at a space to have like sort of a studio space that's like a psychedelic hangout, like fun house, like kind of like a stoner, you know, basement or something, and do a little video episode for like the Friday show, and then Wednesday show will be like a bonus for Patreon people, and then most likely that'll be a solo cast type show that I do. I do these podcasts that's just me, and and then do like a more interview show for Mondays, and then just do more creative stuff around it. You know, like I was mentioning how I got the iPad, like I want to like mess around. I just want to be more creative, and I feel like I've been not really allowing myself to access the fullness of like what I can, who I am and what I can do.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, promotion about what it is you're selling, which is your podcast. You know, it takes time, I guess. Ultimately, this is 10 years in the making as far as Sheath is concerned, and we're doing great now, but there was a time when we weren't, and it's just like constant effort, consistency, and putting it out there, and going above and beyond and offering more than what, you know, you're expected to, I guess. So you're very funny. I would, because that's how we sell Sheath, I think, even is through comedy.
Yeah.
And I guess there's other reasons, but it breaks the ice and brings people in, typically, I find. And you being like a naturally funny guy, he has this YouTube clip, which is impossible to find, but he's doing an impersonation of Alex Jones, and I haven't laughed that hard in like a decade. So if you can find it out there, go. How would you find that?
I don't know why it's so hard to find. I think it's called Alex Jones Goes Crazy. or something like that. But I guess if you go to my channel and you just search by view count on my channel, you could probably find it. It's probably one of the like more higher viewed ones. Yeah.
I don't know why she would be calling me right now. She knows I'm doing a podcast. Yeah, that's a hilarious bit, and maybe being a guest on other people's podcast, like Tim Dillon or whoever.
Me on Tim Dillon?
Yeah.
Oh my God. I mean, first of all, he doesn't have guests really, but I love Tim. I think Tim is probably the funniest person around right now.
Right now, he's killing it.
He makes me laugh like no one else. But yeah, I mean, I love doing stuff like that, and it's I guess where I admire you is and when I was here last time, you and your brother, you're just like we have this idea, we're gonna do this thing, and it was just like boom, it like happened and it was done, and then you made it and it came out like a week later and it was awesome, and I'm like, oh, I want to do this thing, but like I don't know, it's not right. Like I need the perfect thing. Like is that right? Like is that the right line? So yeah, just I guess I feel like I've gotten to a point where I'm like taking a step up now and like relaxing a little bit more, so I can incorporate more of the totality of like who I actually am. I mean, it's funny because hearing you say that, and then I also had like several other people be like, dude, I like your podcast, but like it doesn't really represent like fully who you are. And I'm like, okay, well, first of all, does it have to represent fully who I am? I mean, maybe not. But I do that. The show that I'm going to do with the co-host is going to be more of a comedy, like relaxed kind of fun show.
Well, I mean, I like the politics. I love it.
I think I'm going to start getting out of that.
Yeah.
More. It's like the Godfather, right? Like just when I thought I was out, they bring me back in.
Yeah.
I can't stay away from it, but yeah, I think maybe learning how to like incorporate it a little bit of a different way. Anyway,
I mean, with politics as it stands at the moment, I'm like completely withdrawn. I'm not focused. I'm not paying attention to anything that's happening because I feel like there's some level of corruption that's occurring.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, I mean, whether the election was stolen from Trump or not, I just feel like even if they won fair and square, it's going to go back to the old business as usual, which is fine. Other than I feel like politicians get rich doing a job that they're supposed to be a public servant at. And so we're just going to go back to that and take the light that was shining brightly on government with Trump as the president, and it's just going to turn the flashlight off, and it's going to go back into darkness, and nobody's going to know what's happening, and probably start another war. I mean, and I listen to Dave, and and you have the same perspective on these things. It's similar anyways. So it's like kind of throwing your hands up in the air and like, I don't like this right now. I don't like the direction it's going, which is just back. I felt like even with Trump, we were making some sort of progress as far as showing what's really going on in government, so I like that. And that was my biggest thing with government is transparency. Like, what are you doing? Where is the money?
Yeah. And where's my money?
Yeah. Like, but they, I think they should wear body cams everywhere all day.
But they'll figure out a loophole around that. They have all the money, guns, power, and resources. So whatever laws and regulations and rules they write, there's always going to be, they're the ones that have the first shot, or they're the ones that have the availability or the resources to get around all that stuff and maneuver it. And, and nobody gives a shit anymore. It's like, I don't know. It's such a strange thing. We just live in such a weird world. I suppose at one point in time I thought that like I was gonna like expose the truth of like what the government's doing, and we're gonna like have a revolution, and I just don't see it that way anymore. I think it's like everybody has to attach to like what is gonna give them the most like joy and meaning and purpose in life. And for me, a lot of the drain, and maybe one of the reasons why I left, part of the problem was because I just felt so fucking drained. Like Dave, I don't know how the fuck he does it. He has an amazing ability to consume the media and consume all this stuff, and then talk about it and stay like level-headed and like healthy and balanced. I get like corrupted by it. I go insane, and it's like toxic to me. I can't handle it.
It especially when, like, let's say my wife is on one side of the political spectrum and I'm on the other side, and things that are driving me crazy, I'll be like, fucking Biden laptop, and she's like, what? Like, she doesn't care. And like you said, like, it seems like so many people don't care, that it's like, what's the point of exposing this truth if people are just going to be like, so what?
I think it's like people pretend to care.
Yeah.
Like if you're spending time online, and you look at what people are talking about. I mean, we talk about the mainstream media. I mean, fucking social media is the mainstream media too, and it's like the way that I see humanity acting, and especially like in America right now, is like, oh my God, like did you hear about this thing? Like, this is crazy. And everybody like develops these, not everybody, but people that are in the podcast space or YouTube space or whatever they're doing, Twitter space. It's like this constant sort of playing to your choir, preaching to your choir, playing to your audience. And like, for what? Like, just so you can develop like an audience that just agrees with you all the time about everything. And I mean, like, sure, that's fine, whatever, but it's not really changing. Like, libertarianism isn't going to like win over the population of America. It's just not.
Yeah. And it seems it's absurd that it wouldn't.
It's absurd that it wouldn't.
Yeah.
It drives me mad,
right, to
think about people that don't appreciate sovereignty,
liberty,
like individual liberty.
Yeah.
Like, how can you not, right? But we're in such a convoluted mess, such a chaotic, fractal, fragmented reality bubbles. Everybody's living in their own worlds and stuff, and it's just like, man, the government's going to do what the government going to do over and over again, time and time again. Even if whatever, there was a revolution and this government fell, there'll be another one that'll take its place. It's just the nature of humanity to always like move towards that, and I had this like idea that, well, man, maybe if psychedelics and people can wake up and we can all, but there's too many people that see things differently. So what I'm focusing on is just like, what can I do? Like, what's the best thing that I can do? I said I really weird. I was like, what can what can I do that's going to be the best thing for me, and then the best thing for others that like I can provide and give to people, and then be like, thank you, awesome, cool.
Should be a good person.
Exactly.
I know
it's not ranting about what the HARP like weather frequency technology or
all
like,
of these conspiracies.
No one fucking believes me anyway. Like,
the president is a lizard, and this conversation is just going everywhere. But that's how I like it, and hopefully you guys are still here. But like, I was in the Army, let's say 2006, 7, and one of my cousins was deep into all the YouTube conspiracies, and he's showing me these videos, and I'm like, what am I going to do about it? Like,
yeah, right.
I'm in the Army. I have a job to do. Like, I don't have time for this.
Yeah.
Like, so what if they're like, what am I supposed to do about it? And what does me giving my attention to that provide? Like, how does that help? Except distract me from my job. But I ended up getting into it. His like a little seed was planted, and I was like, yeah, that is fucked up. They started this war from like blowing up one of our own ships or something, the Sea of Tonkin, or
Vietnam.
Like, if they've done that before, what makes you think they won't do it again?
Oh yeah.
And so that the government is capable of just fucking its own people over for their own power, security, keep their power, and make more people money with wars and stuff, which is another subject like that I'm very close to. Like, I joined the Army to go fight the Iraqis because I kind of fell for the weapons of mass destruction thing, and maybe I wanted to. They, quotations, whatever, bombed us. Yeah. So let's go get them. And not to mention that I was bribed into joining with. They paid off all my student loan debt, and gave me $13,000 cash So I had like a $30,000 turnaround from being in debt to being up, 15 grand. And, but so I fell for it, kicked ass in the Army, loved it, actually. Definitely think people should go through that if you can afford to potentially die, I guess. See, he laughed. I mean, one joke. But
If you can afford to potentially die.
or whatever, I felt like it was a huge stepping stone from my life, going from being in a cubicle, working in payroll and human resources, to actually now I have my own business and house and stuff where, that it gives you a lot of, I got my degree, I got my master's degree, I got a house, now I have a business, and would all that have happened if I hadn't joined? I don't know. Probably not.
Yeah. Do you think that it
was like a springboard.
did it like give you this like discipline or
Yeah.
like
Yeah, that too. I feel like I turned into a man. I was 26 years old. I had a kid. I'm going through basic training in AIT, and that itself, I feel like, really helped me position myself like where I stand amongst my peers, like, okay, well, I kick all these motherfuckers' asses. And I did. I was like way better at a lot of my peers at trying really hard. Like, and that gets you very far in life and in the Army. But where I was going with that, I guess, was like somewhere around 2008, 2009. I'm like, what are we doing here? Like, why? Okay, you want me to go back again for the third time? Last time I was there, I came up with SHEATH, but we weren't really doing a whole lot. Like, most of my tour was waiting for something to happen, which happened like 6 times or 9 times out of the 6 months I was there. So there was 6 days where we did something, and I'm exaggerating or whatever, I'm generalizing that, but it was mostly waiting around. And so, and I see KBR and Halliburton and these companies with these huge contracts, and all these people are making hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I'm like, what are we here for again?
right.
And so, like, the whole war thing, I feel like unless we're being directly assaulted, attacked, like, we should maybe fix things at home, but
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I that is the one issue. That's the issue that brought me in to politics.
War?
Yeah.
yeah.
Because it was just like right after 9/11 happened, me and everybody in my community, my town, like the general, I mean, everybody.
You were in New York.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty much everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Was
I was in
like,
California and
let's
I
get
felt
these
it.
fucking people.
Yeah.
And I think it's just weird to hate anybody.
I know.
Like, unless somebody like murdered your family or something, and like you're like, okay, like I hate these people and I'm gonna take care of them. But to hold like that energy in your heart, and I know a ton of people like that too. Like, oh, this asshole Trump. Like, do you see what he's doing? I mean, the whole fucking past 4 years have been like that. It was insane. I think I got a little fatigued too about that with the political thing. This like fever pitch like anger towards this one guy. It's like, guys, like, who cares? I don't hate, like, I think he's hilarious.
Right.
Like, I'm like, this is a great show to be watching. Like,
What a great time to be alive.
yeah. I mean, it really is. It's like, I don't know. I think that energy of hate is definitely, coming from some part of ourselves that we don't want to look at. And this is not my original thought or whatever, but it's, Trump definitely was a representation of like what we value as a culture. Like, politics is downstream from culture. It's the culture that sets the tone, and then the politics kind of follow along. And that, what better represents America than what he represents? That's it. That's it right there.
Rappers,
Reality TV,
yeah,
gold, everything, bragging, like all that stuff. That's where we're at. So
yeah, and I think it was a representation of what we idealize in America. Like, I used to want to be on The Apprentice.
yeah,
I think I applied at one point back in the day.
but also idealize, but don't want to admit. And I
Yeah.
think that's where that hate comes from too. because we all get like
Who doesn't want to be rich and
Right.
famous and popular and like have all the ladies
and win.
Yeah, and win.
And I tend to get like lazy and give up on like the explaining of it. Like sometimes the way that I see it, not like I know everything, but just how it seems to me, being interested in this stuff for like a long time. And yeah, just yeah, I deleted Twitter off my phone. I feel so much better.
Wow.
So much better.
That's my go-to app right now, but I could see why you would want to, because it's just you get confused with who you're having a conversation with anyways. It's like, I'm talking shit to this guy, and then this other dude's like, I wasn't talking to you. And I'm like, well, I told you to fuck off because I thought you were talking to me.
Yeah, it's an insane asylum.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
people are just talking to themselves in the corner of a padded room.
It's gross, and there's nothing constructive. It seems like there's very little constructive going on there. It's just like a venting room to,
Yeah.
throw hate.
Yeah. But everybody thinks that they're like right.
Yes.
And I think that was another big, just go back to the insights that I'm like working through too. And the Trump as the collective shadow, that sort of thing. And it's like, so many people were celebrating for Biden, and it's like, I think they were just celebrating for Biden because they want to go back to sleep. They don't want to have all these tough emotions be pulled up out of them because of the mirror of this collective shadow that Trump represents, and that like mentality, because we don't want to admit that we all have a little Trump inside of ourselves that like is that way, and it's like hiding that, and then just it like festers, but yeah, I forgot what I was saying.
You said they were celebrating Biden's win, which
Because they just want to go back to sleep, because
Yeah.
they don't want to be involved, because they don't want to deal with the stuff that's coming up inside of themselves. Why are you so angry about one man, and what does that bring up in you? And and I think this like Biden thing is just like, all right, Biden's in, cool. He's like, I think I even heard on like MSNBC or something, they were like, and a return to normalcy, just like in the Obama and Bush administrations. I was like, normalcy? Okay, so I guess all that's what they, obviously it's like, we want the guy who's just gonna make everyone be like, oh, he seems like a president. Okay, don't pay attention to anything anymore.
Exactly. He plays the part. And he says what we think we're supposed to hear, and so
Yep.
we can go back, and maybe people should just go back to doing like being productive citizens of society. The only problem with that is like people are gonna take away focus from the government, which they're supposed to be representing us, and we should probably keep an eye on them, because fucking journalists surely are not doing any journalist stuff.
Yeah, well, it's all over. We're gonna be microchipped. It's the way of life that we have been experiencing is gonna be shifted radically. Like this
With
whole
the-
COVID thing,
I heard
like
the
the
COVID
pandemic.
thing.
Like I mean, come on. Like I know that like people are getting sick and like and ill and stuff. Like I probably had it like last March, but the way that they're talking about it and the things that they're doing with this, it's just. But also to say that, it's like, I don't know, is this when was the last time in history that like when was the last time ever that like people put an end to something and we like had this utopia?
Right, like the war on drugs or the war on terrorism. Like you never win these wars. Is that what you're kind of getting
Like
at?
the wars always keep going. It's like back to that, like the tubes and the liquid and the transfer, like all that stuff. Maybe it's not such a big thing to be afraid of. Maybe just go with it and try and carve out your little piece, while you can, or not while you can, but carve out your little piece that gives you the feeling of satisfaction and meaning, and create less suffering. I remember Tim said on Joe Rogan, Tim Dillon, the great Tim Dillon, said, what are you going to do? Sit around and worry about what DARPA's doing all day? You want to go out on the lake and enjoy the day? And it's like, yeah, we can't stop this engine of the billionaire class with all their money and wealth and power and influence from doing the things that they want to do, because they're going to sell it and they're going to convince the masses of people that this is what the thing is to be buying and to be on board with. So what can you do? You create little like rogue factions or tribes and little, and companies, and just move forward.
Yeah, if you just turn off the television and the radio and just like live in your own utopian kind of world of ignorance is bliss, so
to a certain extent.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, you can get by without all of this external data that's seemingly intent on pissing you off and turning you against your neighbor. That's where I've tried to, focus on my neighborhood, my circle. It's fun to watch the shit show on the news and get all riled up and take a side, pick a team and be on that team. That problem, I got fatigued also with the hate of it all and like the Trump hating stuff. And it's like, I don't hate him. I kind of hate Adam Schiff, but I think he's such a little pencil neck dweeb.
Yeah.
But do I hate him?
Right.
No. He's more irritating though. He's like an irritant because I know he's lying.
Yeah.
And it fucking infuriates me. You said you had the evidence of the Russia collusion. Where,
right.
They say shit.
It's magic, man.
And then
it's magic. It's
nobody
sorcery.
holds them to account.
No,
Yeah.
it's not. It's high level sorcery, that goes on in this theater of the absurd that is politics. But yeah, I mean, it's like, I don't know. Yeah, focus on your own thing. Because what does it do? What does it do for you? Everybody's walking around. When you're focusing about these things that you have no control over to
Literally.
directly influence them.
Yeah.
What happened to myself when I was doing this is I felt like I cast myself more in a victim role, and I'm like, and I lose agency, and I get depressed, and I get like, oh fuck it, whatever, who cares? It's all burning down. What's the big deal? So it's like, how could you maybe redirect that energy into something that's more productive? But then again, having said that, people love fucking dramas. Like people love the drama of like, did you see what happened recently about this?
Like water cooler talk.
Because they have boring lives and they have nothing else to worry about. And getting all obsessed about this. And for me also, it was like the joy of knowing like the truth behind the scenes. Guys, you have no idea. They're not telling you about this black budget program. There's these ships flying over Antarctica. The Earth is flat. Oh my God, it's hollow. Now we don't even exist at all. Holy shit.
But then they don't. But then you tell them, and then the people that are biased on the other direction are going to be like, they're not going to hear you.
Anything, they're not going to hear you. Totally right about that. Anything that you can put forward as being like some idea or a theory can be proven and backed up, and also disproven and discredited and debunked. Yeah, it's all, and we're so in that culture too now of like. These are, Ben Shapiro. Facts don't care about your feelings, okay? I want, just go to college, get educated, and have me come to your college so I could smack you down with my facts. And there's like smackdown, like be right, like this is the way,
Yeah.
But I think what we need more is just like openness and uncertainty, and just like, I don't know, saying I don't know and going with the flow.
Yeah, the people that are so like digging their heels in, thinking that they're right, are the ones I feel like that are causing the problems, like the censorship of people's speech and trying to control people, and because you think you're so right, and that is like fascism or something, which I'm not even 100% sure what that means, but just like trying to control the population on a certain idea. And
yeah, I mean, I think it's the lack of real purpose, the lack of vision, the lack of real like connection with everything that is you and everything that's around you, where most people feel that if they can prove that they're right in some way, that it feels like you're doing something, and that you have some kind of validation and some kind of like, moral high ground on others, and it makes you feel like all warm and good on the inside. Oh, I told someone to wear a mask today, and I did my part. And it's like, man, just fucking leave people alone. Like let people make their own decisions, and I think we'll all be a lot better if we just learn how to like respect each other's differences a lot more. And
Yeah.
who knows if that's
because
gonna
I don't,
happen or not, but
I feel like I'm right on certain things, but I definitely don't know that I'm right. Therefore, I don't try to impose I might tell people like, oh, did you hear, like about whatever happened about like the Biden laptop or something. And then the emails that showed Biden was really working with the Ukrainians and like, I heard that, I don't know that that's true. I'm hearing
probably
that.
true.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Nothing shocks me anymore.
But I tell someone and they don't believe it. Where did you get that information? And is that a credible source? And it's just like, well, what are we doing here?
There are no credible sources.
Yeah.
I really think that like that it's just gone. Like it's not real. Like none of this stuff is really real, but it is. But it also isn't. But it is.
And so, the moral, I think, is live and let live. Do your thing. Let me do my thing. The whole libertarian philosophy. Don't infringe on other people's freedoms and the do no harm principle.
Sure.
And
the golden rule, right?
we should all be able
And the
to get
golden
along.
shower.
The golden shower is key. We were getting along fine, kind of. I think, and that's the silver lining about Trump potentially losing is all that hate maybe will go away. Of course, people are going to go back to sleep, but that leaves room for people like us who are industrious and entrepreneurial to get ahead while they're sleeping.
Yeah, I just want Biden presidency. Fine, good. Just stop being so annoying about how much you hate Trump.
Yes, and I can move on to. I thought he was funny. I think he actually did a few good things.
I did a lot of great things, tremendous things, wonderful things. The greatest things I've ever done was create my daughter Ivanka. She's hot. She's great. I love her.
Too much. I love her a little bit
I
too
love
much.
her a lot. Yeah.
Want to squeeze the breasts.
He said that on a show, I think. He said, like, if she wasn't my daughter, I'd tell you I'd be taking her out for wine and a nice dinner, and then back to my tremendous Trump Tower.
And then people lost their shit about that. It's like, he's kind of a comedian also.
He's hilarious, yeah.
Yeah, so like, don't take everything he says so seriously. Like, I have the biggest crowds. He didn't have the biggest crowds. He exaggerates.
See, this is why I love comedy so much, is because it the comedy that Ari Shaffir, Tim Dillon, Dave Lewis, Jay, these guys, it's just like, dude, everything is sacred, but everything is also absurd as well, and like, because all these guys have good, like, they're good people, like they have good hearts.
Right, exactly.
But it's like, if you see the world with such rigidity as being like this super serious thing where you don't bump into the walls, like don't make any mistakes, like, oh my God, like someone said, you're gonna fucking like just tighten up and crack into a million pieces, But if you can hold everything loosely and like in that like tubular, wormy, like decomposing, reinvigorating, rebirthing kind of way, it's all absurd. It's fucking insane. It's like, we're playing the finite and infinite game at the same time. It's like we have these finite games where it's like there's a definite beginning and a definite end, and there's a clear winner and a loser. But the infinite game is just to keep going, keep living, keep continuing on, keep moving forward. And I think having that perspective and seeing that, seeing everything with a little wit and a little humor and a little absurdity, and holding things like not
loose,
loose and not so tight, just gives you so much more freedom, so much more happiness, less suffering, and allows you to enjoy things in a way, But again, it's like you can't just like tell people that. You just have to experience it. So, maybe psychedelics can help, or maybe something can help, something to get you to just realize how wonderful actually it is to be alive, and how magical and how amazing it is that like we get to do all these things that we get to do.
We're so blessed.
Yeah.
And we live in America, and what they all thought the world was going to come crashing down with Trump as president. We're all still here. So same thing holds true for the people worried about Biden. You know,
Well, the good news is that I think they're going to allow podcasting at the FEMA camps. So, you know,
we'll at least have
that.
good
Yeah.
conversations. I thoroughly enjoyed this. I would like to continue on, but I got to get back to work on some things.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you traveling a couple hours to get here into the snowy mountains.
Oh, my pleasure. I like coming here.
Yeah, and I have some gifts for you. I think you brought me some gifts. I do
Yes.
appreciate it. You know, but like, you know, just live and let live. I think there was a couple of points where I could have been like, that's a great stopping point, because, you know, like that's the message of the podcast. So whoever's editing this, title it something Mike said earlier about, you know, like living and let living. I said that, but he said something else. Because the message is just like, fucking relax, but work hard and be industrious and productive, and like pursue your dreams and read Think and Grow Rich again and again. You can't just read it once. It has to like seep in. And
Yeah.
You're still young. You're like low 30s, right?
Sure.
Okay, whatever. You might even, anyways.
Yeah.
I read it like 10 times, and I really feel like you don't have to be a genius to be successful. You know, there's a way of doing things, and they're all kind of laid out in that book.
Yeah.
So,
And I'll just say, like, really inspect, like, one of the things that I wanted to communicate, I guess, about what I'm going through is like, really just check your bullshit, inspect where the truth is in yourself, and make sure that you like surround yourself with people that are doing that for you too, because we always forget, and we need other people to remind us, and then we can remind them when they forget. It's like we're all in this fucking thing together, you know. Find your community, find your homies, and you know, make magic happen, because
Yeah,
we're
make
all
some magic
capable of
happen.
it. Yeah.
I think we are. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you, Mike, for joining me. Very good conversation. That's why you have your own podcast. And yours is way better. So check his podcast out.
No, this was good. I enjoyed this. So we'll do. You'll have to come on Micadelic, and then we could turn the tables, and I can interview you more.
I would love that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I've been waiting for that invitation.
There you go.
And I want you back on here. We'll have to do like every 6 months or something. You know, some podcasts have reoccurring guests. I think
Oh,
this
yeah.
would be a good one for
Cool.
this. So, all right. Well,
Let's just never end. Let's just like tease that we're gonna say goodbye.
I hate when
And,
people
like,
do that.
All right. Without further ado, here's the.
You know, Tai
before I
Chi.
get into that today.
Have you gotten into Tai Chi?
Yeah.
Breathing and movement.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Bobby. This has been great, and I am very grateful to have met you and to be in the Sheath family.
Yes,
So, thank you.
absolutely. We're growing, maybe. We're going to grow together. And go to Onnit, get some Alpha Brain, go to sheathunderwear.com, get some underwear, and turn off the news. All right. Bye, people. Bye, people.